Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Turning Two Tunes. My name is Anna Martin, and I am your host of the very best country music and baseball talk show around. Today is kind of a wild card day because I'm here to obviously talk about baseball, and if you've been following the hot stove season, which is what they call the off season in baseball, you'll know that the hot stove has been pretty darn cold. So I had to get a little creative today with today's show. If you've been listening before, you'll know that we've been kind of doing a preview of all of the different divisions in baseball. And today was supposed to be NL Central Day, but I just wasn't feeling it today. So I think we're just going to roll with it. We're going to talk about the Mariners. We're going to have some very special guests on. My brother is actually going to call into the show. He's very heated about a list of the top 10 shortstops in baseball that just came out. We're going to talk about that. The Mariners. I already said we're going to talk about the Mariners. I love talking about the Mariners. You know we're going to talk about the Mariners. It's Turning Two Tunes. I'm sure we'll talk about the Red Sox at some point, but really, I want to hear what you guys want to talk about. So as a reminder, you can call in today at any point in the show to chat with me about anything you'd like to. Doesn't even have to be baseball. We can talk about the Cougs. Yes, go Cougs. They had a basketball game yesterday. They won. Very nice. To be on the radio, the best time to call in is when I'm playing music, so I can get your call right away. I'm a one-woman show up here. So that number, don't worry if you don't get it. I'll repeat it lots throughout the show. 509-335-2207. Give me a call. Let's talk. Let's talk about anything you want to talk about. And right now, we're going to start off the show with Taylor Acorn's song. If you haven't ever heard of Taylor Acorn before, oh my goodness. One of my producers just told me about Taylor Acorn, and I am honestly in love with every single one of her songs. So I'm going to play a song called Same. You're going to love it. Trust me. Here we go. All right, let's get back into this. We are talking about the Mariners today on Turning Two Tunes, and I'm so very excited because I think the Mariners are a super interesting team. And I don't just say that because, you know, I'm from the Seattle area and people think I'm facetiously a fan of the Mariners. We're talking about the Mariners today because this team is, like I said, super interesting, a lot of options. As some of you may know, I think I talked about this last week on the show, but now that the Buffalo Bills made the playoffs in football, the Seattle Mariners in the four sports leagues, NHL, NBA, MLB, NFL, the Seattle Mariners are the longest of all those teams to not make the playoffs. They have the longest playoff drought of any team in the four major sports leagues. And so everybody's like, well, if the Bills turned it around this year, you know, is there any possibility that the Mariners could be next? And I think this is a tough question to answer because it's January 14th. I mean, pitchers and catchers do report in like a month or so, but it's January 14th. As I said earlier, hot stove season is cold, very cold, ice cold, if you will. And so it's hard to gauge. But here's the problem with the Mariners. They have a good lineup. They went out, they got Dee Gordon, and so now they have Dee Gordon and Gene Segura at the top of their lineup, and then they have Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, and Kyle Seager in the 3, 4, 5 slots. I love that. That lineup. The rest of the lineup, too. Then you have Mike Zunino, catcher, Ben Gamel, Ryan Healy, and Mitch Haniger. I love this lineup. Yes, I have some questions with Zunino. He's never been a good hitter. Yes, I have a couple of questions with Gamel and Healy. I like Haniger last year. He was injured a lot, but when he wasn't, he was good. I like this lineup. I really like this lineup, especially those top 5 guys. This is a good lineup, y'all. These are good hitters in this lineup. Obviously, Gene Segura, he hit like 300 last season. He hit 296. I mean, I like this lineup a lot. Let's see, what did Zunino hit? 231. Like I said, I mean, but that's the lowest average of the bunch here. I I like the speed at the top of the lineup. That's a lot of things that teams don't have anymore, is speed at the top of their lineup. I'm trying to think who the Red Sox have at the top of their lineup. They have Dustin Pedroia. They tried to put Mookie Betts up there, but it's a mess. Both Dee Gordon and Jean Segura. Dee Gordon stole 47 bags last year, and Jean Segura stole 25. I love the speed at the top of this lineup. The speed and then hitting for average. That's great. I mean, this is a good lineup. Like, you look at this lineup and you're like, wow, the Mariners, they're going to win the World Series. But then you look at the pitching, and this is the problem, because Jerry Dipoto, the GM of the Mariners, has said that in terms of pitching, they're done. And I think in terms of everything, they're not going to make any more moves unless it's, like little pieces, but nothing big. The Mariners need a front line starting pitcher. The problem is there's Jake Arrieta and Yu Darvish on the market, and I think there's somebody else. I'm trying to think. Oh, there was Garrett Cole wasn't a free agent, but he was just traded to the Astros. His name was floating around with the Yankees. And so really Yu Darvish and Jake Arrieta are your two frontline starting pitchers who are still available. I think Yu Darvish would be a great fit for Seattle. Obviously, you have a lot of Japanese fans here. I know a lot of Japanese players like to be on this coast, which was shown with Ohtani. He might have been. He's Korean? I'll look that up. But I know a lot of pitchers from Japan and Korea and those countries. They like to play on the West Coast because there's a big fan base of Japanese and Korean fans here. And I think he'd be really great because he's pitched in the AL West his whole life. He pitched with the Rangers, or not the AL West, but he's pitched with the Rangers for a really long time, and then he just went to the Dodgers this season. So he knows the division well. I think he'd be a great fit for the Mariners because if you look at the rotation now as it is, you have Felix Hernandez, who... You have a lot of questions about Felix Hernandez. Is he the same pitcher that he was when he won the Cy Young even 2-3 years ago? When he was, you have King Felix, King's Court out in Seattle. You have this really dominant powerhouse ace. Is he still that guy? Because he had the injury bug last year. A lot of fans that I've been seeing talking about this are saying no. He's not the same guy that he was when he was in his prime and he was, a fearsome ace. Like, he's still a good pitcher, but is he an ace or is he a more 2-3 guy? That's the question here. And then the talk is that if Felix isn't that guy, because, I'm looking at his stats right now. He had an ERA of 4.24 last season. He was 5-8. He only pitched 121 innings, which is not what you want from your ace. But then again, you have the injury is why he didn't pitch. And then you had his fastball is dropped in 90.5 miles an hour is his average fastball there. So the velocity's down. We're seeing a similar, I don't want to say, God, like a similar trend to like a CC Sabathia kind of where you have the fall off there. But CC Sabathia had a great season with the Yankees last year. And I compare the two because they both have, that really electric fastball and it's losing velocity. And so if you're a fastball pitcher and your fastball is losing velocity as you get older, you really have to reinvent yourself. And what CC Sabathia did is he really worked on his location and making sure his pitches were, if they weren't fast, they were precise and accurate. Not to say a 90-mile-an-hour fastball is not fast, but we're in the big leagues where, guys are coming out here with, 98, 99, 100. And so going back to the Mariners rotation, you look, if Felix Hernandez is not your ace, the front office of the Mariners is really hoping it's going to be James Paxton, who they have, who's been, you keep hearing, James Paxton is like this name that keeps coming up in Seattle, and they've been talking about him for, like 3 or 4 years at least, as kind of the successor to King Felix. They have the King's Court for King Felix in Seattle, which is they have every time King Felix is pitching, they have this section of seating and they give everybody a gold T-shirt and a gold K card. So it's a gold piece of, it's a card and then it has a blue K on it. And so every time like he's up, they're like, oh, strike him out, get a K. It's whatever. So they have that for Felix, and then they just put in the Maple Grove for James Paxton because he's from Canada, and they call him the Big Maple because he's from Canada and he's really tall, very inventive. So they have the Maple Grove for him. So he, fans know that this guy, like they're like, oh, like really excited for James Paxton. He has been injured like every season for a long period of time. He cannot stay healthy. But when he is healthy, he's really good. Last season he actually threw 50 more innings than Felix did. And he had his win-loss record of 12-7, ERA of 2.79, average fastball 95.4. So when he's on, he's on. I mean, I think he had a stretch of like 5 or 6 games where he had a 1.29 ERA. I just remember seeing that somewhere last year. But when he's good, he's good. And so you could say, oh, if he was healthy, if this was a guy who is like perennially healthy and is going to throw, 200 plus innings for you, you're like, wow, here's my new ace. Like, I don't have to go out and get a frontline starter because I have James Paxton. And then you could let Felix kind of fall back to that 2-3 spot. But the problem is James Paxton is not healthy enough to be your ace, because when you need an ace, you need somebody who can go out there every 5th day and get the job done for you, especially like if you're in a losing skid. Like, what really defines an ace for me is if you're in like a losing skid, this is the guy you call on and you say, hey, we need a win today, and you feel 100% confident that this guy is going to go out, he's going to get the job done, and he's going to get you the W. But you can't call on James Paxton every 5 days, because every time you turn around, he's on the DL. So you, as the Mariners kind of look at this rotation, and you look at the rest of the rotation, you have Mike Leake, who came over in a trade last season and from the Cardinals, and actually was pretty good for the Mariners. Not an ace, but pretty good. This is the problem. You have these guys who are pretty good, but not an ace, because you have they're called pseudo aces. I heard that term earlier in the week on MLB Network, and I really liked it, so I'm taking it now. But you have pseudo aces, and so you say, oh, these are my, I have kind of 3 guys who are, pretty good, but every good team needs an ace. Every single one. The Red Sox have Chris Sale. The Astros had Justin Verlander when they won. The Dodgers have Clayton Kershaw. The Yankees have Luis Severino or Tanaka, or that's another argument. But they have somebody who you can put in there. The Blue Jays have Stroman. Like, they have someone who can go in there every 5th day and get the job done. And the Mariners don't have that. They used to have that. Felix Hernandez used to be one of the most dominant aces in baseball. They don't have that anymore. And that is what this team needs. And they keep, sticking their heads in the sand, and they're like, we have Felix, and we have James Paxton, and Mike Leake, and Erasmo Ramirez, and Marco Gonzalez, and Ariel Miranda, like, whatever. But you have Hernandez and Paxton, and we don't need an ace. We don't need a frontline starter. You do. Because you tried this last year, and they were both injured. And there was a point in the season, it was earlier in the season, it was like May or June, where 4 of the 5 starting pitchers for the Mariners were on the DL. And you know what they did during that span? They lost a lot of games. The Mariners need to go out, and in order to be a competitive team, because this fan base is hungry for the postseason, even if it's just a wild card. I say just a wild card. Even if they just get a wild card berth, they just play, they taste postseason baseball. They need a starter. They need an ace. And if you can't get an ace, if you can't get Yu Darvish because your farm system is depleted, you don't have any money because you spent it all on Robinson Cano, you need somebody who can stay healthy, who can give you 200 innings, who can go out every 5th day and be your stopper, or get you the win. If you're on a skid, be your stopper, and if you're not, just get you a win. The Mariners don't have that, and that is why they are not going to be in postseason baseball. I joke around, maybe they'll get that wild card spot, but God, this rotation is really what the problem is. And it makes me mad to see, like, this is the talk that the Mariners are going to make it to the playoffs because they have this great lineup, and they do. They have a great lineup. But the rotation, they need a Yu Darvish. They need somebody, because Felix, you can't just sit around and pretend Felix Hernandez is the Felix Hernandez of 2 or 3 years ago. Excuse me. You can't just pretend Paxton is going to be healthy and is going to be there to give you 200 innings, because he hasn't in the past 3 or 4 years. Oh, look how many years he's been in the majors. And Mike Leake is not going to be that guy. You have nice 3s and, maybe 2s and 3s. You don't have a 1. All great teams have a 1. The Mariners are good. I saw some projection that they will. There was one projection floating around that says they're not going to break 500, and there was another that says there'll be a couple of games over 500. I think they could get that second wild card spot because the first one's going to the Red Sox or the Yankees. I really think they could get that second wild card spot if they get a frontline starter, because it's not going to be easy to play 19 games a year against the Astros. But then they also have 19 games a year against the A's and the Angels and the Rangers, and those are all very winnable games, especially against the A's. The A's don't have anybody, so the Mariners should be easily take half of those games. I mean, they should definitely be taking more than just 8 of the 19 games they play against the A's. But they have a real chance here. The AL West is not as strong as it has been in the past, but it is getting stronger, and the Mariners are going in the wrong way. Age-wise with the roster, they're going in the wrong way. They need to win. They need to win now. And if they're not going to win now, they need to not do what the Orioles did and stick your heads in the sand and say, oh, it's fine. We're going to be fine. We're just going to keep going with our aging superstars. If July comes around and the Mariners are not within striking distance of 500 or not within striking distance of a wild card spot, if they're more than 7 to 10 games out of the wild card spot, they need to think about trading. Think about trading Paxton. Think about trading whoever you can, Segura or Gordon, or flip these guys, because the Mariners are getting older, and I'd hate to see what happened with the Orioles happen with the Mariners. What happened with the Orioles is, I talked about this last week on the show, I think. The Orioles looked at the season last year and they said, we can do this. We can. It was at the wild card at the All-Star break, and they said, we still have a shot. We still think we can win. And they had aging superstars. They had people who were going into free agency. They were like, we still think we can win this year. Zach Britton, their all-star closer, he's down. He's down for 4 months at least. Manny Machado is going to go into free agency next year. They don't have any pitching. I mean, the Orioles have never had any pitching. And they've tried to put things together, and it hasn't worked. They've got like Ubaldo Jimenez and Wade Miley, and they try to do all these like odd things, and it never worked for them. And the Orioles are not going to do anything this year, and they're not going to do anything for the foreseeable future because because they made it to the DS a couple years ago, but their time to win was then. And then they clung to that. And it's hard to admit to yourselves, as from a front office standpoint, it is hard to admit to yourself, to the players, to the fans, that your time to win is over, and it is time to rebuild, and it is time to look to the future. It is hard. Because you know how it's hard? Because it's hard for anybody to do that kind of self-reflection and say, obviously not on a baseball scale, but to say, I need to stop and reevaluate and start moving forward in a different direction. It's hard to do that, especially for the fans, because baseball is a business. You're trying to sell tickets, and you're trying to do this. Same thing has happened with the Marlins right now. We have gotten way off topic from the Mariners, but I promise I'll bring it back. Same thing has happened with the Marlins right now. D. Gordon was just traded to the Mariners from the Marlins. Derek Jeter, I'm sure you all know who Derek Jeter is. All of you, like 2 people who are still listening to me yell about the Mariners, like 30 minutes in. The Marlins, Derek Jeter came in, GM of the Marlins. He's the owner of the Marlins. Owner, GM, something, of the Marlins. He's trading off like everybody. Stanton, gone. D. Gordon, gone. Oh, God, somebody else. All of these big contracts. He is tearing this team down, and he is rebuilding it from the start. I'm sure Christian Yelich is going. I think Marcell Ozuna went to the Cardinals. He's rebuilding it, and people are very unhappy with him, especially the fans. This is what has to be done in order to win. The Marlins haven't won. They're on that list, too, of teams that haven't been to the playoffs in 20 years. And I'm not joking about the 20 years thing. You have to start from the bottom, because if you just keep adding money to your roster and your core players aren't good, you are not going to get anywhere, and you're just going to have payroll that you can't do anything with, and then that's going to lock you in, because you're not going to have the payroll flexibility that you need to go out and make the moves you need to do. If the Mariners, their time to win is shrinking, Do they need to do a complete rebuild like the Marlins are doing right now? Do they need to do what the Yankees did a couple of years ago and, turned it around like that and just flipped players, got great returns, and brought them up through the system? Maybe. I think, it's hard to tell. Because I like Mitch Haniger a lot. He's young. I like Gene Segura and Dee Gordon. I think they're both pretty young. But Felix Hernandez is not. Robinson Cano is not. Nelson Cruz is not. If the core of your franchise is aging out, you need to start asking yourself these hard questions. And if you can't win now, then what are you doing? It's hard to sell off pieces. And it's hard to say to the fans, this is not our year, and it's not going to be our year for next year, or the next year, or the next year, or maybe not even the next year. But you have to do it. You have to. So the Mariners really have to do some self-evaluation. And I think by July we'll know where we stand. But the Mariners they just can't putter around here like they did last year and just kind of like hope and pray somehow they'll like make it into the postseason. Meanwhile, another year goes by where they don't trade off any of their players. They don't make their farm system any better. They don't have any more payroll flexibility. The Mariners got to ask themselves some hard questions, folks. And that is the Mariners segment. I told you I'd give you a nice Mariners segment. I want to hear your thoughts on this. If you're still sticking around listening, I'll pull up my listener channel here in a second. 509-335-2207. I want to hear from you. I want to hear all about the Mariners. When I come back, we are going to talk about shortstops, and we're going to have a fan favorite on. I'm sure you all know who it is. We're going to jump back into some more music here. Here we go. Y'all know what that sound means. It means we have a call. Zach, are you there?
Yeah, what's up?
Hello, how are you this fine afternoon?
Oh, I'm just great.
You sound great.
Oh, yeah, just sending it on a Sunday afternoon.
Just sending it on a Sunday afternoon, is that what you just said?
That is indeed what I just said, yeah.
My God. Okay. So I got a text message from you this morning, and it was very angry. Do you want to tell the folks listening what it was about?
Sure. So as you said before break, you were going to talk about shortstops, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so what I sent you a text this morning, and it was a picture of a show on MLB Network. Brian Kenny, who I'm not the biggest fan of, he has a show, and it was MLB Network Countdown, and it was showing the top shortstops in MLB. And there was names on there that I didn't really think belonged, and one that rather upset me was that Didi Gregorius is not considered top 10 in Major League Baseball at the shortstop position by the machine that he created called the Shredder, and I thought that was completely ridiculous.
Okay, so I agree with you. I think Didi Gregorius is one of the top 10 shortstops in baseball. He had a great season last year. I think on defense alone, he's better than Tim Beckham, who was number 10, plays for the White Sox.
Yeah.
Or the Angels. I don't know who he plays for anymore. But I would not expect...
And an aging Elvis Andrus was number 8, and although he had a pretty good season, but he still didn't have a better season than Didi Gregorius did, and Didi Gregorius is still in the prime of his career. Right.
So I agree with you. I perhaps was not as mad as you were that Didi Gregorius was left off this list. But I definitely think that Didi Gregorius deserved to be on the list of top 10 shortstops. And I honestly, when I heard they were doing the top 10 shortstops list, I was like, oh, great. Because I thought he was going to be like 3 or 4. I thought he was going to be pretty high up there. I was like, oh, great. Zach's going to call me and I'm going to have to deal with this. And then when you sent me the text this morning that he wasn't on the list and Tim Beckham and Paul DeYoung were, I was like, what? So I was shook.
Yeah, I agree with the top 2 on this list. They have Carlos Correa at number 1. Yeah, obviously had a great season last year. Emergent player, great player. And then Corey Seager.
Right.
Kyle Seager's brother. plays for the Dodgers, took his team to the World Series. Not like there's other great players on his team, but he went to the World Series on a good team. And then I mean, it's flipping a coin with number 3. They said Francisco Lindor is better than Didi Gregorius. And, I mean, Lindor is a real good player, but I think Gregorius, especially, maybe just the park he plays in lends to having more home runs. Gregorius I'm talking about, but I feel like Gregorius had a better season last year.
So I did look this up, and I do actually remember. So Tim Beckham is with the Orioles now, and he did have a pretty good season last year. So I'll give him that. He hit 306, had an OBP of 348, OPS of 871. Let's see what else we got here. But he his lifetime average is His lifetime batting average is 247. Excuse me, 260. I'm looking at the wrong stat line. His lifetime average is 260. He had, I mean, so just to say, like, he's one of the best shortstops in baseball because he had one good season. Like, I think when you look at Didi Gregorius, he's much more of a well-rounded player, and he's had several good years. As opposed to Tim Beckham, who had one good year. And so to play...
No, it wasn't even a full year. He was having a terrible season with the Rays.
Right, and then he came over. Yes, you're right. Because
it's a good half season.
He only hit 259 with the Rays, and then he came over and hit 306 with Baltimore. And so just to be like, out of all 30 shortstops in baseball, to say that this guy is number 10, like, I just don't... I don't get that.
And Didi Gregorius, I feel, is definitely better on the defensive side than some of these guys on here too.
Let's see. Didi Gregorius hit 287 with New York in a full season with New York last season. In the year before that, he hit 276 with New York, and before that, he hit 265. And so I think he's just, I don't know, he just has a better, like, overall, and he was on the Dutch national team when in the
WBC.
Yes. So I think I just think he's a better overall player there. So just to see Tim Beckham on this list was kind of shocking. And then I think Paul DeJong is a rookie, so he's had one season.
Yeah, that's true. And then not only those two, but Trevor Story. I don't see that at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
they have him at number 9. So
obviously, like a couple years, right? A couple years ago, when he hit all those home runs and he was this great big story. I haven't heard much from him recently. Like he had all those home runs in his rookie season, and then he just kind of faded. So I mean,
and now again, it plays the ballpark. I mean, in Colorado, anybody can hit 20 home runs in Colorado, and it's not like he's hitting 300 and hitting 35 home runs. Yeah. He struck out like a million times last year.
Right. So I think it's, to say, you could go through and be like, oh, who's 5 or 6 or who's 7 and 8, but to say, like, to leave Didi Gregorius off this list entirely, I think is not good, because I think he deserves to be on the list.
I know if there's people listening and they're like, oh, it's a machine, don't blame Brian Kenny. Brian Kenny has said many controversial things and been wrong on many things. And I just don't like the way he goes about analyzing baseball with all these new techniques and stuff, all these machines. Like, baseball is not played by machines, it's played by humans. And, like, when you're on the field, you're not thinking, oh, what's my rated runs created plus going to be if I strike out in this at bat, or if I hit a home run at this at bat. It's no, you're trying to get on base, and no one cares what your weighted runs created plus are.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in looking at it and evaluating players from an analytical standpoint, but to a certain point. To your point, like nobody cares, like weighted runs create, like what even is that stat? But to look at a guy's stat line, like a basic stat line, like average and OBP and OPS and those kind of things, and say, okay, we're going to rank a guy based on this. I think that's valid, and I think that has a lot of good things to it.
And also, like defensive metrics, fielding percentage, all that.
Right,
like you
for
need,
sure.
There's certain things you need in a scouting report, and
Yes.
then there's certain things that like Brian Kenny has made prominent that that are just not important.
Yes. I do agree with that. This is crazy. This is like 2 weeks in a row where we've just been like agreeing with each other and not creating any drama for our fans. Let's see. Like, what else would you like to talk about? We've got, I just talked about the Mariners. I know you told me you were listening, which is great. Love when people listen to my show. And you said you wanted to talk about the GM of the Mariners, so go for it.
So, yeah, I do. You said that the Mariners need to trade Paxton or someone who they can get something back for. But
I think they should.
The Mariners trading in the past has not exactly been the greatest.
So
and Jerry Dipoto, their GM, has not made good deals. And even before Jerry Dipoto, that I'm sure everybody remembers that Adam Jones trade where they got Eric Bedard back,
right,
and Adam Jones has been a superstar ever since they traded him.
Yes. So I think so on the trading standpoint here, because you see where Baltimore is when they were, they had all these players that they could have traded at the second half of last season, and they didn't, and they hung in there. Same with Kansas City. They're not going to get anything back for these players, and now they're just they're like in limbo. I think if the Mariners should learn from that. If they're competitive at the trade deadline, if they're within striking distance of the wild card spot, I think they should hang in there, and I don't think they should trade anybody. But if they're out of it, like you can look at it and say, oh, the Mariners, this is not their year. I think they should consider trading players, and I'm not the only one who is saying this. And if they want to hold on to Paxton, I think there are other moves that they could make, like the Yankees did when they traded Andrew Miller and they got back some really good players, and now they're ready to compete. Because I think the Yankees were able to look at themselves, say this isn't our year. We don't need to do a complete rebuild, but we do need to build up our farm system. We need to get some good younger players in here, because you look at the Yankees, Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, Clint Frazier, or whatever. These guys who are kind of the future of the Yankees, maybe not so much Clint Frazier, but these guys who are the future of the Yankees have come up. Gleyber Torres have come up through the farm system, and so I think that's where the Mariners are struggling, because they don't have a farm system. So I think maybe if they're not in it, like the Yankees, they decided they weren't in it 2 or 3 years ago. The Mariners should do a similar thing where they flip some players, get good returns on them, and then are ready to compete within a year or two. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with parts of that they need to get players back, but if they trade their frontline starter, James Paxton, then it's not like the Yankees situation because the Yankees they haven't had a below 500 season in 20 years.
Yes, exactly.
And so they were never bad. They never missed the playoffs. The Yankees never had the longest playoff drought in any major sports team in North America.
Yes, we got
it.
So
it's a different situation. I see where you're coming from, but they need to trade players, but I don't think they can trade anyone major, because they still need these players to at least not be 20 games under 500 come season's end.
Well, I think they're kind of in a place where they're between the Marlins and the Yankees, where they need to rebuild, because obviously the Marlins are trading everybody and they're really starting from scratch, and they're just saying, okay, here's what they're starting from scratch essentially. So I don't think the Mariners need to do that. But they need to rebuild the farm system. They need to have some way of getting better, because they've been doing the same thing now for years and years and years, and it's not paying off for them. And they thought that their time to strike, the reason they went out and got Robinson Cano is they thought that he was that one piece that was going to send them over the edge and get them into the playoffs, and that hasn't happened. And you look at now, you have Robinson Cano, you have Kyle Seager, and you have Nelson Cruz, 3, 4, 5, or not in that order, but those are your 3, 4, 5 guys. They're aging. And they are not the young core, like say the Astros have. They have a great young core who are going to be there for a lot of years. These are not the guys who you can say, okay, it's not our year, we're just going to wait till next year. They have to do something now, or they have to start trading people, because I would hate for that to end up like the Royals or the Orioles, where you just have nowhere to go and you have no farm system and you have nobody to trade, and all your guys are going to leave in free agency or they're just aging and nobody will take them. So I think the Mariners they're kind of in a tough spot right now, but I think they can do some things to get themselves out of their spot. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, you want to rebuild the farm system, but like I said, you can't, but by trying to rebuild the farm system, you can't deplete the 40-man. You can't just completely tear it down. Well, and I know what, like you're saying, just trade one guy, but are you really going to get enough in return for that one guy?
Well, I think maybe not just trade one guy. I think they could do something between what the Yankees did and what the Marlins did and trade some of their guys and then get good returns on that.
Oh, okay. I guess I can understand that, but again, I mean, you're not gonna, if you're gonna trade Robbie or Nelson or Paxton, you're not gonna get a ton back for, even though Paxton's a good player, he's been injured, and how many teams are gonna take a chance on having a good pitcher for half a season?
I think there are a lot of teams who would.
Or having Robinson Cano or Nelson Cruz.
I think. So I want to know your thoughts then. So what would you do? Because the way the Mariners have been playing, obviously, it hasn't worked out for them. So you're the GM of the Mariners, Zach. What do you do? What are you going to do to get this team to win?
Well, I don't really know about their front system. I don't know if they have any prospects.
It's not good.
Like pitching, big-time pitching prospects. But like the Yankees had they were nothing. No one thought they had anything for a farm system until really 2 years ago when Judge was coming up,
right?
Torres was coming up, and Frazier, all these guys that are like, whoa, where did these guys come from? So I think if the Mariners can play 500 ball, I think they need to like think about trading their players, but if they don't love the deal they're getting, then I think you just roll the dice and draft some players instead of, just fire sale getting rid of people, because that's obviously not going to work out for the Marlins. And like, I'd hate to see the Mariners lose like as many fans as the Marlins have because they got rid of all their great players. But that's what they're heading to anyway. So I think
the Mariners have been rolling the dice for like 20 years, and it hasn't gotten them anything. So I think they need to try something else here, is my point.
Well, okay, yeah. But maybe you invest more money into trying to get better scouts so you can get better players in the draft instead of just screwing around for 20 years and getting terrible players drafted.
Okay. There you go, Mariners. Invest more in your scouting. I think this is an interesting issue, and I definitely want to revisit this because I think a lot of it will depend. What the Mariners do in the future will depend on the first half of this season, and if they are able to. Because they're like, we're not getting a frontline starter. Jerry Dipoto has said we're not going to get a frontline starter. This is the group we got. We're gonna win ball games. So I think a lot of what they're going to do in the future depends on, because they're done making moves. So I think it's going to depend on what happens up until the trade deadline. But I think it's really interesting, and I'm sure we'll be having this conversation all season, as lots of Mariner and non-Mariner fans alike are having this discussion. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Zach, in your weekly call-in?
Nah.
I know you have a project due soon for school, so I will let you get back to that. But thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, a little update on the NFL today.
Okay.
Jacksonville's up 42-28. But,
oh wow.
Pittsburgh's in the red zone right now, and they have 2 timeouts. 2:58 left in the game.
I mean,
so they're at the 18-yard line right now.
Who would have thought at the beginning of the season that we would see the Patriots and the Jaguars in the AFC Championship? I mean.
Oh, the game's not over yet.
Okay, how many points is it? What is it? 42-28.
14 points, but Pittsburgh's in the red zone, and they have 2 timeouts.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy your game. I don't really like football, but I'm just going to be here talking about baseball for about 55 more minutes here. But thank you, Zach, for calling in and enlightening us with your great opinions. Love hearing from you. So thanks for calling in.
Yeah, bye.
All right. Hope you send it, sir. Thanks, as always, to Zach for calling in on the show. It's always great to hear from him. I hear that we are going to get another call here very soon. But I'm going to play some more music for you guys because it is a country music and baseball talk show. But we've had a lot of good baseball talk today. I'm really surprised because, as I said earlier, like the hot stove has been super cold, but I think we've had some great conversations today. If you want to get on the action, 509-335-2207. Give me a call. We're going to jump back into some more music here. Oh, what's that sound again? You all know what that means. We have another phone call. Who is on the phone with us? Who's there?
Who's there?
Who's there?
It's Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake! So glad you could join us.
Oh my, no, it's not Jake Gyllenhaal. I lied.
Is this Anna Somerville?
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness. Anna Somerville is live on Turning Two Tunes with us. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great.
Very
I
nice.
just took a bite of avocado toast.
Great.
I'm a white girl.
Right. Living your best
I'm
life.
watching this movie. Yep.
Yes.
What's up?
Well, I am hosting my radio show, as you know. It's called Turning Two Tunes. What would you like to talk about today? We could talk about, there's no, like, the Cougs, the football is over. So actually, that's a good question. So you are in the marching band, as I'm sure longtime listeners will know. What do you do? Because you go, you're marching pretty much every home game you're marching, even some away games. What do you do when there's no marching left to do?
Well, I mostly just cry. And I cry about Jake Gyllenhaal also.
Right.
So the way the pep bands or athletic bands work here is they're each separate. And at my high school, it was like if you were a marching band, you're like in the basketball band and in the whatever band, whatever. Like you were, it was all mandatory. But here it's like here's a marching band, and there are there's the volleyball pep band, and then the two basketball bands. So if I wanted to be in a pep band right now, I could audition and maybe get into one and still be doing band. But I did not this year because I wanted to occupy my time maybe with a job or whatever. That's working out real well.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the off season, like you could still do athletic band. It's just your choice, you know.
It's different. So you did volleyball band. And then there's basketball bands. Is there anything after that? Do they have like track band or baseball band or anything like that?
Nope.
Wow. They should.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's very exciting. Trying to think of what else we could talk about. Last time we talked about our favorite kinds of potatoes, and that was a great talk. Let's see. Let's talk about let's talk about movies. Because we watched a movie last night. Me and Anna were friends. And we watched it with a couple of our other friends, and we watched Brokeback Mountain, which has Jake Gyllenhaal in it.
Really quick, I have a question. I'm holding some Pez that I found on the coffee table. Are those yours?
Yes.
Can I have one?
Go for it.
Okay, cool, thank you.
So we watched Brokeback Mountain last night, and none of us had seen it, and it was a bummer.
Spoiler alert, it's really sad.
It's sad. I think I knew it was sad going in, so I feel like that's not, like, I feel like everybody knows it's a sad movie. Also, this movie came out, like, a long time ago. It came out in 2005. Like so, I mean...
Which was... Okay, really quick, can we talk about how 2005 was 13 years ago?
Yeah.
What is up with that?
That's pretty shaking.
Yeah.
But it was a sad movie, and so Anna was just sad last night.
Oh my gosh, I was so sad.
Can you tell the listeners about your reaction to the film?
Yeah, so we watch it, right?
Right.
And I'm sitting there. The ending happens, and I'm like, okay, I'm all right. And then Hannah and I drove back to our living place, and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, I'm not all right. This is not okay. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go, like, lock myself in my room and go to bed or whatever. And I was like, I can't handle being by myself right now. Like, I'm going to get too sad. So I came out here. I was sitting with Hannah, and, we were watching something. I can't remember. What were we watching? SNL.
We were watching SNL, yes.
And then, And then one of my friends who lives upstairs Snapchatted me, and he was like, hey, we have some chocolate cake. And I was like, this is the cure-all. Chocolate cake will cure everything. So I literally ditched Hannah. Which I feel bad about. I just ran up and got the chocolate cake.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, and then I tried to go to bed, but I was too sad, so I stayed up until 1 in the morning, just feeling sad about that movie.
Anna.
Yeah.
Last night was eventful. Yeah.
In all, overall, Brokeback Mountain is a very sad movie.
So sad. And it felt really long, but it wasn't that long. Stop. Yeah, anyway. So I had gotten yesterday, me and Anna went to lunch, and then we went to a little coffee shop, and I won't tell you the name because I'm about to, dust the coffee. But I got cold brew. And I've had cold brew from, Starbucks before, and I was like, it's just a little bit more intense than iced coffee. I can handle this. My God. This cold brew was so intense. I gave Anna some to try, and Anna doesn't like coffie, and
I'm a tea gal.
It was.
Where are my tea people at?
Tea is good too.
So I can hear you. Yeah.
And I asked I'm like, can I have some milk in it, please? And they gave me some, and I had to go. So we went over to our friend's house, and I had this cold brew with me, and I just poured a whole thing of creamer into this boy. And so it was, I had a very upset stomach for the rest of the day because I could feel it, this cold brew, gnawing a hole in my stomach because it was it was just too much. So if you ever get cold brew, watch out. Don't do it. Just get iced coffee because it's not worth it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that was our day. Anna was sad. I wasn't that sad. I don't know. It was a sad movie, but I'm not affected by movies other than Moneyball, which is a great film. Sad.
Anna has no soul.
That's tea. And so I was just chilling. My stomach was really upset. I went to bed. I wasn't up till 1. But yeah, and then today, very exciting, after the show, we are going to go do an escape room. And me and Anna, if you didn't know this, so there is...
gosh.
There is a video game company that's based in Seattle area, and it's called Her Interactive, and they put out, the main game that they put out are Nancy Drew games. And so these games, I've been playing them for years, and they're great. And I'm actually a tester. I was a tester for the company when I was still in the area, and now I'm on the other side of the mountains, and I'm not in the area. And the first time I ever moved into the dorm I lived in last year, I was like, wow, this really reminds me of one of the Nancy Drew games that I was playing. And so I started playing that game, and Anna came in and was like, oh my God, is that Nancy Drew? And I was like, what? You know about Nancy Drew? And so she has played all the games. I played all the games. We bonded over our love of Nancy Drew games. And so I am very confident that, and one of our other friends is very good at puzzles, and we're all very smart, not too. I'm an idiot, but all my friends are very smart.
We are the most smart and, dare I say, the most humble people you will ever meet.
Yes.
I have never met people more humble.
Yes.
I'm saying this with my nose in the air, and I'm trotting around. No, I'm kidding. But, yeah.
So there's 8 of us, and we're going to go down to this escape room. Great. We're going to solve it. It's going to be great. I'm really excited to actually be Nancy Drew for a night. It's going to be great.
I'm excited.
So, yeah, I'm going to do that with Anna and our 6 of our other friends. Very excited.
We have 6 other friends?
I know. It's like, wow, we have so many friends. We're so popular.
Wow.
But Anna is one of the only one who ever calls into the show. So thank you, Anna, for calling into the show.
You're welcome. I love being on the show.
I will let you go and enjoy your avocado toast because I've never had avocado toast.
I finished it when we were talking.
Wow.
That was my first avocado toast, and I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yes.
I don't know if
what'd you put on it?
Because here's a quick fun fact about Hannah Martin before she kicks me off her show. I never trust. I was thinking about it the other day. One of our other friends brought it up. I can't trust Hannah's opinion on cuisine anymore because she gagged when she ate a piece of sushi. Like just a. What was it, Hannah? Was it like a California roll?
Yeah, it didn't have any raw meat. It didn't have any raw fish in it.
Like a beginning level piece of sushi, and she was just, So I don't know if Hannah would like avocado toast because I feel like I don't know Hannah anymore.
I think I would. What did you have on yours today? Was it just toast and avocado, or did you put anything on it?
It was, so I put butter on the toast,
Okay.
like salted butter, and then I put avocado on top, and then I just salted and peppered it, and it was tasty.
I know some people put like hot sauce on top.
Ooh, yeah.
But,
be good.
There are lots of things to explore with in the world of avocado toast. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm super excited to come home in like a half hour and go to the escape room with you.
Yeah,
so,
me too.
I will see you soon, but thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And maybe we'll hear from you next week again as the adventures in Anna Somerville's life. Maybe you'll have something baseball related to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know how I am knowledgeable about that.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
I
hope you have a good rest of your show.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, folks. That was Anna Somerville once again. Lovely gal. She's so nice for joining us on the show. If you'd like to call 509-335-2207, we have about a half hour left on the show. Call in. Get us back on track with baseball or talk about avocado toast. Your favorite Jake Gyllenhaal movie, perhaps. Anything you'd like. 509-335-2207. We're going to jump back into some more music here. Here we go. All right, y'all. You know what that means. It is time for me to say goodbye for this week. I feel like the show went super quick today. I don't know. It just went by so fast. I'm glad I had enough music for the show today because I was worried that I didn't. But I honestly, I don't like to replay songs. And so in the whole history of Turning Two Tunes, to my knowledge, I've never replayed a song, except for the preview rack songs. Or the what are we supposed to call them? I'm not supposed to call them preview rack. The station favorites. But I really pride myself on that, and I really love finding new music for you guys and like not replaying the same songs. I might have to start playing new songs because I'm like running out of music. But I have a whole Spotify playlist full of potential new music. And this week was the first week of second semester, so I just did not have any time to listen to any music this week. But tomorrow is an off day for all students because it's Martin Luther King Day. And so I'm hoping to get some homework done tomorrow. I need to get some homework done tomorrow. But I'm also hoping to go through that playlist and find some new music for you guys because so many of my favorite songs have been found through me listening to music. Like Sam Riggs I played today. He's like such a great artist. I found him just looking for new music to play, and he has so many of my like favorite songs now. I'm trying to think who else. Let's take a peek over here at my playlists and see who else I've discovered through this show. And so that's like one of the reasons I love doing this show so much is because I get to find all of these cool new bands for not only to play for you guys, but to play for myself and to listen to. Chris Bullard, Hadley Kennery, Josh Dorr, who actually I love all of his stuff that he's been coming out with. He just put out a new album called Sundancer. I've been playing a lot of his music for you guys. I love it. Let's see, who else? Just so many cool new artists that I did not know about until I started Turning Two Tunes. And so I hope you guys listening also find some music through Turning Two Tunes that you love and that you want. That you listen to, you take the music from the show and you listen to it. If you ever have a song that you're like, wow, this song bangs, I want to hear it on Turning Two Tunes, let me know. I'm on Twitter, on Facebook. You can always just email KZUU and say, hey, I listen to Turning Two Tunes. Could you play this song for me? You could just call during the shows, 509-335-2207, and you can request a song at any point in the show. I'm more than happy to play that. I love hearing from you guys. So thank you. Again, we've reached the end of the show, another show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for 2 hours. Thank you for calling in, to Anna and Zach for calling in and talking to me about avocado toast and the Mariners. Next week, we will be getting back on track, and we will be speaking about the NL Central. And then we're done with 4 out of the 6 divisions in baseball. So then after that, we'll talk about the AL East. And then I'm going to do I like saving the AL East for last. So we're going to talk about the NL East, and then we'll talk about the AL East. And yeah, that's how it's going to go. And then we'll be out of divisions to do previews for. And by that point, hopefully, I think pitchers and catchers will have reported to camp. So we'll have that to talk about. Hopefully somebody gets traded so that I can talk about that instead of just talking about the Mariners. I love them. But I would love to have a new free agent to talk about. So fingers crossed. I think I said this last week that hopefully the Red Sox and JD Martinez had made up ground somewhere, and they hadn't. So that's why I didn't talk about JD Martinez and the Red Sox today, because nothing happened. Hopefully somebody gets traded. Somebody big that I can talk about. Be interesting for you guys. Once again, thank you all so much for listening. It means so much to me that you guys are always tuning in and listening every Sunday from 12 to 2. So on that note, I will catch you back here next Sunday from 12 to 2, Turning Two Tunes. Bye, guys!